Yeah, so I've been reading a lot about the steel mill lately, so I wanted to do something a little different today. I'm going to read a very new piece that I've been working on recently called Erosion. And the piece has kind of two rapidly alternating voices. The first voice is from like my 16-year-old self who is sitting at a park with her mother. The second voice is my perspective 16 years later as I'm standing at the edge of Lake Erie. So I will be reading the 16-year-old perspective, and my lovely husband, Tony, here will be reading the later perspective, and hopefully it'll all kind of click into place. But I've never read it before, so we will see how it goes. So this is the beginning of Erosion. 16 years old. It's too warm for mid-March. That much is obvious.
16 years later, it's too wet for early summer. That much is painted in mud on my boots.
I sit at a picnic table at a park with my mother, avoiding her gaze.
I walk on the edge of a small bluff beside Lake Erie, marveling at the way in which the waters have risen.
Robins and blue jays call to one another in sharp trills and cat-like screeches, and a little boy plays on a swing set beneath the trees. His legs dangle helplessly, too short to pump his body upward, so his father pushes from behind.
Record high rains have fallen this year, and the effects are visible. Waves crash against a break wall, snatching up chunks of concrete as if they're pieces in a game of jacks.
Higher, higher, the little boy begs, squealing every time his body arcs towards the sky. My mother and I listen in silence. She brought me to this park after Sunday Mass, just the two of us, to talk. We are caught in a push and pull of our own.
Huge portions of the earth have been eaten away from the shoreline, revealing craters of black soil that look desperate and raw. Something about this erosion reminds me of pictures I've seen in head wounds when a bullet exits a skull.
Why are you crying? My mother asks, her voice hesitant.
I think of bloodied caverns open just above the neckline. I think of fissures and clefts in the skin. I think of a scientific study I once read about in self-inflicted gunshot wounds. Sometimes, if the blast is severe enough, the brain will fly out of the skull and land a few feet away from the body of the deceased.
Why are you crying? My mother asks again. What can I possibly tell her? For months, a blanket of gray has covered Cleveland with slush and misery and sudden squalls of snow. But now the sun beams through the clouds, radiating over the muddied grass, the salt-stained pavement, the bone-thin squirrels searching for the remnants of the caches they made last fall. The sudden burst of daylight feels nearly obscene to the sun-starved, but I drink it in anyway. I believe it's the last light I'll ever see.
I know it's not normal to think of suicide while standing at a park on the lakeside. It's not normal to spend your nights poring over autopsy photos of suicide victims, trying to divine the amount of pain one feels when the gun fires, or the noose tightens, or the tank of nitrogen gas lulls you to sleep.
Earlier this morning, I rooted through the household chemicals in the basement until I came across a bottle of drain cleaner, which had a skull and crossbones on its side. I poured myself a glass and headed back to my room.
I know, for instance, that a shotgun in the mouth is better than a handgun to the temple, and a handgun to the temple is better than a jump from a bridge.
With the drain cleaner in hand, I turned my head towards the ceiling and whispered a prayer. This is all I can do, I said, bringing the cold glass to my lips. Then, with my head tilted back, I poured the drain cleaner down my throat as if I were nothing more than a clogged pipe.
I know, for instance, that a jump from a bridge is better than just about anything you can find in a musty old basement.
Why are you crying? My mother asks for a third time, a little louder than before. I don't answer, not immediately. The drain cleaner bypassed my lips, my mouth, and my tongue, but now it burns in my stomach. A blue flame has opened up inside me. A white-hot piece of iron has sprouted below my ribs.
I want the craters in the earth to remind me something other than suicide.
Tears drip from my chin and cheeks, but I steady myself.
I want the craters to remind me of pockmarks or cupped hands, but the city has surrounded them with red caution tape as if cordoning off a crime scene. The caution tape flaps in the wind, repeating a single word: danger.
At any moment, the drain cleaner could overtake me. In an instant, it could all be over.
A chill rain will come again tonight, adding gallons to the lake, cutting soil from the earth, putting a damper on summer plans.
On the other side of the park, the little boy laughs from his swing set. Higher, higher, he says into the March sun, sweat beading on his forehead. It seems that the winter is breaking.
The weather, it seems, has broken.
I am here, breaking with it.
I sidle next to the red caution tape that flutters beside the lake, my boots sinking slightly on the muddy grass.
My mother knows nothing of the drain cleaner, the skull and crossbones, the warning label on the side of the bottle, may be fatal. I don't tell her a word. I keep my mouth shut.
I want to witness this erosion.
Her face looks pale and drawn in the midday heat of March.
I want to get a closer look at the wounds in the earth.
I read into every wrinkle, every laugh line, every furrow in my mother's brow, each one a reminder of the pain I've caused.
I walk closer to the damaged shoreline, a cold mist stinging my cheeks.
This bout with the drain cleaner isn't my first suicide attempt. It's not my second either.
It's more than curiosity I feel at the rising waters. I've read about the threatened species, the melting glaciers, the rising sea levels. I've heard of the erratic weather patterns, the island of garbage that's as big as Manhattan, the strange disappearance of the bees.
I've been killing myself to escape a sickness.
I've been reading the book of Genesis.
Desperate for release.
Humans were given dominion over the animals and the earth, or so the saying goes. I used to believe the word as a child, but nowadays I make a living in big industry where carbon dioxide is released by the ton.
My sickness is simple. I stuff myself with anything I can find in the kitchen cupboards. I eat until I'm ill, and then I vomit it all into a toilet in the basement.
I work with the gases, solvents, the byproducts that are poisoning the waters.
Handfuls of almonds and fistfuls of crackers and sagging dollops of crunchy peanut butter all turned to bile in my mouth.
Sometimes I scroll through the company-wide newsletter that outlines environmental breaches. The scrubber went out on the blast furnaces for 2 hours, it says. 1,000 gallons of red liquid has leached into the Cuyahoga River, it says.
It can't be helped.
The oil slicks, the chemical spills, a sea of plastic headed for landfill.
I can't stop the binges, the purges.
Sometimes I mention the environment to my coworkers. We need green technologies, I tell them. We need to limit our footprint. We need to restrict emissions.
I'm an addict, the doctors tell me.
We need, I tell my coworkers.
Lines of vomit always dribbling down my chin.
I stand on my soapbox for everyone to see. Meanwhile, a big paycheck from big industry is being deposited into my bank account.
Bulimia, the official diagnosis.
It's a small gain for a huge loss, a fleeting reward in exchange for something that can never be made whole again.
My parents have been paying thousands of dollars for me to see doctors and nutritionists and shrinks, but everyone knows that I'm relapsing.
I run my fingers over the red caution tape, wondering if this erosion is part of a larger shift in climate. Most of my coworkers would argue with me on this account. Global warming is a hoax, they'd say.
Just a few months ago, I tried to kill myself with a motley assortment of medications in the family bathroom. Aspirin, Tylenol, random decongestants. I ate the drugs greedily, drinking water straight from the tap, but nothing ever came of it.
Climate change is a conspiracy, they'd say. It's an elitist plot to make money, they'd say.
The pills made me sick, so I puked them up in the bathroom and told everyone that I had the flu.
Climate change isn't real, they'd say. It's a fraud, a con, a bit of fake news.
Now I'm at it again, searching for death in a bottle of drain cleaner, trying to break free of what ails me.
Now I'm here by the lake, pretending concern for this erosion.
Here, waiting under the hot March sun.
Here, admiring the swollen waters that have been battered by my industry.
Hoping the poison does what it promised.
Thinking fondly of the lake until the start of tomorrow's shift.
Tell me why you're crying, my mother says from her seat at the picnic table, her voice softer than it has been in months.
I run my fingers over the red caution tape, tracing the word danger, noting how easy it would be to slip right past.
I don't know what to tell my mother.
The waves swell beside me, and I'm struck with a sudden desire to throw myself past the caution tape and onto the eroded soil below. It's less of an urge and more of a compulsion, this feeling that I might not be able to prevent myself from casting my body headlong into peril.
I can already feel the drain cleaner do its work. The pain in my stomach is a rush of heat, melting every cell, every synapse, every pore.
I get this sensation every once in a while, on bridges, on cliffs, on the bluffs beside Lake Erie.
It's a pain that defies language, a pain that only exists in the far out reaches of the mind, somewhere beyond reason, beyond structure, beyond words.
Don't you ever feel like you might just throw yourself off the top of a building? I asked my husband once. He stared at me in dismay. Other people feel it too, I told him. The French even have a word for it.
a pain that makes me feel like a solid thing sinking.
The appeal of the void.
Memories flash through me like snapshots from a projector, the label on the bottle of drain cleaner, the tiny skull and crossbones, the prayer before the deed, this is all I can do.
I want this erosion to remind me of something other than suicide, but everything circles back to it. The headshot holes in the earth, the siren call of a sharp fall, the lake eating the soil that doesn't belong to it.
My head tilted back, the cold glass of drain cleaner against my lips.
The memory of eating what I shouldn't have, the scars left as a result.
The words on the bottle may be fatal.
Drain cleaner isn't like arsenic or hemlock. It doesn't poison. It erodes. It burns away your flesh until there's nothing left.
I imagine my body dead on the kitchen floor, on the bathroom floor, on a gurney in a hospital. Maybe death will happen here in this park, beneath the sunny skies that warm the picnic table. Maybe it's so close I can taste it.
The death caused by drain cleaner can take days, weeks even. The liquid breaches a hole in your intestines, causing food and bile to spill into your abdominal cavity. Pain ensues. Infection follows. Sepsis seals your fate.
I imagine the morgue, the autopsy, the casket, the funeral.
The lake churns below me, every wave rolling into a whitecap, every whitecap sucking a mouthful of soil into its stomach. I want this erosion to remind me of something other than suicide, but everything comes back to that moment in the park after the drain cleaner. My eyes locked on my mother's eyes.
I imagine the eulogy, the hymns at the gravesite,
The sun dappling the mud-spattered ground.
the pallbearers, the memorial cards,
Our brows moistened from the winter heat.
the hearse, the undertaker, the smell of lilies in the funeral home.
How the drain cleaner burned from the inside.
How devastated my mother will be when I am gone. Thank you. And thank Tony.